They used to call me the disappointment in heels. My husband led that chorus, with his polished smile and quiet contempt. To him, I was a burden disguised as a wife. That morning, as I stood in my Harvard Law graduation gown, I finally understood the art of patience. Because real revenge isn't loud. It waits, it listens, and it walks into the room when everyone least expects it. My father's voice filled the auditorium like thunder. "I'm proud to announce," he said, "that my daughter, my only daughter, will inherit everything. The company, the mansion in New York, and of course, the car waiting outside." People clapped, cameras flashed, and my husband, Daniel, smiled for the crowd. But I saw it, that twitch in his jaw, the panic behind his teeth. For years he told me I'd never be good enough, that I was lucky he'd saved me from wasting my life chasing law degrees and impossible dreams. He never believed I'd make it here. That's why the envelope in my hand, the one the stranger slipped me before the ceremony, made my pulse steady, not race. "Time to show them who the real loser is," he'd whispered, and I knew exactly what he meant. Daniel and I met when I was 21, fresh out of college, hopeful, stupid. He was charming, older, with that effortless confidence that made people listen. He said he loved my ambition. Later, he'd call it ego. The first cracks showed after the wedding. He controlled everything, finances, friends, even my wardrobe. He said it was for our image. I believed him. That's the thing about emotional cages. You don't see the bars until you stop apologizing for existing. Then came the affair. Not with a stranger, but with my best friend, Claire. They thought they were careful. Late-night strategy meetings, hidden messages, the sudden scent of her perfume on his shirt. But law school taught me how to read between the lines and people's lies. So I collected evidence quietly. Not for heartbreak, for leverage. Daniel didn't know my father had rewritten his will. He didn't know my name was already listed as the sole successor of the company he'd been planning to steal. He didn't know that the failure had already hired a private investigator, a forensic accountant, and a discreet tech firm 6 months before graduation. By the time he realized something was wrong, the ground beneath him was already crumbling. It started small. I froze our joint accounts. He thought it was a bank error. Then the board of directors received an anonymous tip about his misuse of company funds, the same funds he'd siphoned into a shell company under Claire's name. When investigators showed up, he called me crying, saying it was all a misunderstanding. I didn't answer. That week, Claire's husband filed for divorce, armed with the same evidence I'd anonymously mailed him. Every piece of betrayal I'd uncovered, I turned into documentation. Every insult he'd ever thrown, I turned into data. And when the law caught up, I didn't lift a finger. He destroyed himself trying to prove his innocence. Now, standing in the back of that auditorium, I felt calm. My father's eyes found mine across the crowd. There was pride there, but also understanding. He'd seen through Daniel long before I did. That's why the inheritance wasn't just money, it was control. The company Daniel thought he'd manipulate through me now belonged entirely to the woman he underestimated. The stranger who handed me the envelope? He wasn't a stranger at all. He was my father's lawyer. And inside that envelope was Daniel's confession, typed, signed, dated. A neat summary of every deceitful act he'd committed, copied from the files I'd built and sent to my father months ago. My father made him sign it under the pretense of an investment agreement. Daniel didn't even read it. He never read anything that didn't have his name in bold. After the ceremony, Daniel cornered me outside. His smile was stretched too tight. "You planned this," he hissed, "didn't you?" I looked at him, really looked. The arrogance was gone. His eyes darted, his breath shallow. He was already collapsing under his own lies. "You're paranoid, Daniel," I said softly. "Maybe you should get some rest." He stepped closer. "You think you've won?" "No," I whispered. "I know I have." His face drained of color. He hadn't realized yet that the press release had already gone out, announcing me as the new CEO. His access to company assets had been revoked minutes earlier. The car he'd driven here in wasn't even in his name anymore. Every escape route was gone. He turned away, gripping his hair, muttering something about betrayal. The irony almost made me laugh. That night, I walked through the mansion that used to feel like his kingdom. The air felt different, lighter. My reflection in the glass staircase looked like a stranger, but one I finally recognized. Claire tried to call. I didn't answer.